So I really love that video because it frames one of the critical questions that we heard from you when we went out and started exploring this whole idea and area of advisory. And it's this challenge of taking the first step. How do we get started? And there are a couple of challenges that you told us that existed in doing that. Number one was, Tim, my team aren't really good at doing that. You know, they've been hired and recruited and trained to be doing the compliance work, to be doing the transaction processing. You know, it's a different mindset that they need to actually initiate a conversation. And the second is that even if I could get their mindset there, they don't have time to do the work to come up with some insights that mean initiating that conversation would be of value. You know, it would take them a few hours to really get in and do some analysis such that they had something of value to bring to that first conversation. And so what I'm delighted to do today is to share with you a new solution from myob called myob Advisor. And we've built this solution with those two challenges in mind. The concept of myob Advisor is that it is available to you to help initiate conversations. It's not going to answer every question, but what it will hopefully do is make it easier for you and your team to quickly and at scale initiate those conversations. So perhaps the best thing for me to do is to just get in and show you myob Advisor. So what is it? myob Advisor uses artificial intelligence and natural language generation, right? So that's the underlying technology. We've placed myob Advisor over all of the essentials and account right data files. And the goal is that it creates output that allows you to engage in advisory conversations at scale. Perhaps the best thing for me to do is actually just jump in and show you myob Advisor. So you've seen this screen before, of course, it's your partner dashboard. And as Simon pointed out, on the top left there is a little tab called Advisory. Now, I'm not sure if you're in the room there, Simon, because it's all black at the back for me with the lights on. But I have to say that I was delighted that you chose not to go any further and click that tab, because I really like you, Simon, and this expression was going through my mind called career-limiting moves. And I thought they were about to play out in front of me here at Inside in Melbourne. But this is the Advisory tab. myob Advisor, by the way, is in pilot right now, so about 30 or 40 of you are using it in your practice, but it will soon be available to all myob partners free of charge across all of your essentials and account right clients. So let's click and go through. So you can see here the list of clients, and you can see new report or published report, as Simon pointed out earlier. I'm also going to click on new report, as he did. What that enables us to do is to, up the top there, choose the time period for which we want to run this report. So you can run it based on a month, 2-month, or quarterly basis, and choosing the end date there. Now, the importance of this is if you choose a monthly basis, then all of the report is going to be this month versus prior months. If you choose a quarter, it will be this quarter versus prior quarters that we're looking at. So it's just the sort of unit that you want the analysis on. And then once you're ready, we just click Generate. Now, what myob Advisor is doing now is reaching into either the essentials or the account right database, and is going to bring back a chart. In fact, it's actually a series of reports. And what those reports will show is across the top here, sales, cash, expenses, accounts receivable, and then over on the left there, an executive summary report. Now, as you go down each of the reports, you'll see on the left-hand side, there's just some really clean graphs and charts. And then on the right-hand side, these two really important boxes of text that I'll come back to in just a moment. You can see as we scroll over the chart there that the live values are coming out of, in this case, the account right data file. And you can see the actual revenue for the month coming through. But I described earlier these two text boxes on the right as being absolutely critical. So what the artificial intelligence has done is have a look at the data and determine the trend, and then the natural language generation has created a written statement in natural language, just normal everyday talk, as to what the data says. So in this case, the company generated $113,000 of revenue during the month of December. This is a significant decrease versus the previous month, being 35% lower than the November sales figure of $172,000. Right, so just natural language. Notice there the significant decrease. Rather than being 35% down, if it was 15% down, it might have said sales fell in the month of December, or sales were lower in the month of December. And if you run the report again and again, you'll see that there's different language in there. Now, this purple box down here is the area where you can ask a question of your client. This is the area where we're trying to prompt the conversation. So in this case, it says, in order to improve sales, is a 2 to 5% increase in price feasible? How do you think your customers might react? Now, you might think for this client, there is no way that that's an option, so I just want to delete that. But what I might say is, that I'd love to have a chat to you to make sure that we're both aligned around what's causing this trend, or something like that. In this case, though, you can see that this quarter was actually much higher than previous quarter, so you've added the comment. It's worth noting, though, that this quarter has been significantly better than last quarter. What do you think it was that drove those results? So it's an opportunity for you in there to throw out questions, just little thoughts, prompts, that the system will throw out some and you can add to them to try and get that conversation started. Now, if we scroll down here, the next chart is the cumulative year-to-date revenue versus prior year. So these purple bars down the bottom here are identical to the ones up the top. But as you can see, what's happened, sales this year are well ahead where they were last year. Again, over on the right there, the natural language commentary. You can actually take out any of the lines if you'd like, but if you do take out the cumulative prior year and the prior year, it's not really a comparison to prior year anymore, but that's your choice. And here you go, we can add them back. This is a revenue projection, so this takes the first 6 months of actuals and projects out the next 6 months. On the first chart, this blue line, looking at the November to December trend, because it was a monthly report, and assuming that continues, which means from effectively March on, there is no revenue. Or the pink line that goes up applies last year's second half trend versus the first half, but to the base of this year's first half. So it's a seasonal versus just the last month. And then down the bottom here, just who are the top customers. And you can see some really interesting observations the system made on the right there, that the top 20% of customers make up 80% of your revenue. Now, you might determine for that client, that's actually a revenue concentration risk, or it might be a possible strategy of really focusing resources on those clients to lift profitability in the business. And that's just from your knowledge of their business, the industry that they're in, etc. So that's the sales report. My favourite report, however, is the cash report. So let's go over and have a look at the cash report. Have any of you ever had a client that says to you, you keep telling me that I'm making this profit. Why is it that there's never any money in the bank? Yes? You don't have those clients in Melbourne? Yeah, oh, you do have those clients in Melbourne. Well, this report is for them. So what this report really simply does is show the sources and uses of cash in a very simple visual way. So you can see that big green line here, that's revenue coming in. You can see OPEX and COGS are actually a small portion of the uses of cash, but here you can see the change in accounts receivable is actually the material use of cash in the period. That's just an incredibly valuable piece of information for your clients and a great opportunity for you to have a conversation with them about what it is that actually drives cash flow in their business. Now, from my perspective, if you did nothing else but run this report, click and copy that report into a body of an email and send a quick note to your client on a monthly basis, you will turn around the conversation and the relationship you're having with them. Just quickly here, that was the cash balance chart. So the purple line shows the high point and low point of cash for the month, and the green dot shows the ending point. The good news here is cash is going up, and then down the bottom here, it's just where that cash is held. The next report is the expenses report. And the expenses report looks at operating expenses in the purple and cost of sales in the green. And you can see, interestingly, cost of sales have been coming down, even though revenue was going up on the last chart, but the operating expenses are relatively flat. So again, on the right, it's just really simple written language as to what the chart is saying about the two trends in cost of sales and in operating expenses. Open opportunity there for you to throw out any question or observation that may have crossed your mind. The first thing you need to do with this client, though, is talk about the way they're using their chart of accounts, because 80% of expenses are being coded to other expenses. So it's relatively difficult to work out what's happening in this client's business. So that's where I will be starting my advisory conversation. And down the bottom here, just trends in those key expense accounts. So moving on, we all know how important accounts receivable are and how important a cash flow it is for a small business to manage their debtors. So this top chart here just breaks down, it's an aging profile of debtors. So the good news here is most are in current or 1 to 14 days. The bad news is there's a chunk here that are over 30 days. You know, again, a written explanation of what that trend is, and then over here, a prompt that, you know, what we've seen is using online invoicing and payments can materially reduce that. Is that a conversation that you'd like to have about how we can get you started on that? So accounts receivable in this business has been growing. We knew revenue was growing, so it's probably not too surprising. There was some good work in November to bring it back down, but unfortunately in December it's blown out again. Let's just go and have a look at it by debtor. So you can see Big Co here is where most of the balance is. The good news is, though, a lot of it is in 1 to 14 days or current. There's only a small portion of their overall amount that's in plus 30 days. Personally, I'd be a little more worried about this next one down, where almost everything is in plus 30 days and we're not doing any more work for them. So, you know, I'd really be following up there to make sure that we get payment. And then you can see down here, just jumping into the individual debtors, you can see the actual invoices that make it up and an analysis of how the health of that debtor account is. You will notice there's 1 or 2 syntax errors. As I said, this is in pilot right now, but we'll certainly sort those out before we go to general availability in a couple of months' time. So that's the debtors report. As I mentioned, there's then an opportunity for an executive summary, and this just looks across the financials, so business performance, P&L, business position being the balance sheet. And you can see the summary sentences that are put in there. So in this case, for the month ended 31 December, Hard Soft Technologies generated income of $113,000. After deducting cost of sales, gross profit for the month was $107,000. Overall, the business made a net operating profit of $91,000 for the month. And the business position, again, just natural language around what the balance sheet is telling the business owner. You know, how many business owners can really read their balance sheet and be able to quickly work out what they should be taking from it? You know, in my experience, not enough. And so this is a way for you to be able to send them an easy to understand written analysis so that they can get a little bit more insight from the information that you're providing to them. And then finally, the cover page. This is your report to them. So you're able to put their logo in it, and then down the bottom, put your logo on it, so that it is something that is coming across as something that you have specifically reviewed and prepared for them to help them in their business. Up the top, there's the Publish button. So if we just click in the Publish button, what we'll see is that report is now published, and there's a link that allows us to go and view the published reports. If we click through there, you'll notice on the top right there, we've moved away from new report to published report. Now, the importance of published reports is the numbers are now locked down. So even if someone goes back into the underlying ledger and makes some entries, the written analysis that you have looked at and approved matches the financials that were drawn at the point where you'd hit publish report. We can then export. You can export to PDF or to Word. And if we hit export, we're just going to export here to PDF. Of course, you can then share it with your client using the portal. But what you'll see is there's just a beautiful formatted report there that goes through everything that we saw on screen. So all of those HTML pages, but just formatted to make it work in a written document. Really calls out those purple boxes as it scrolls by, which is the ideas. Those are the prompters to try and engage in that conversation. What you're hoping is somewhere in there's an observation that actually really strikes a chord with your client, such that they'll actually respond and say, when you said this, I wouldn't mind understanding more about what you were talking about. So that's MYOB Advisor. What do you think? Yeah? So again, the goal of MYOB Advisor isn't to answer every question, it's to make it scalable for you to engage in more advisory type conversations. So if you'd like to learn more, by all means go and visit the MYOB tech stand out there, talk to your client manager, or just go to this URL and you can register to be part of the pilot, run it for a couple of clients, send it out, see how they engage with it, get different team members playing with it and see how you go. We're really excited about what the opportunity for MYOB Advisor is.